Hello and welcome to another edition of Talking around the Library Tree from Lancaster University Library. My name is Andy and I'm joined today by my colleague Anastasia Kelly. Welcome.
Thank you, Andy.
And we're going to talk about Anastasia's role here at Lancaster and a few other things as well. So would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Anastasia. I'm the Faculty Librarian for the Management School. I have a dual role, so I look after content as well as teaching and learning and supporting academic staff and researchers.
Sounds very good. So can you tell us a little bit more about your role and how you can help students?
So my role is very diverse. I also, support students with, inductions. We've just come through quite a busy few weeks with that. That's new students joining the university. Today I was supporting students who are starting their dissertations, but also support researchers as well who come to us and ask for support with, finding, content for their research, or they're starting to think about beginning their research. And also staff who are starting to think about resourcing their teaching. So I have a role where I support resource lists. So we're going to be working on that quite a lot next year, hopefully with the curriculum transformation programme. Very, very diverse. Lots of things going on at the moment.
Lots to keep you busy then.
Lots of things to keep you busy.
Okay, so following on from that, a question that I've been asking all our librarian colleagues is, what's your favourite database and why?
Well, I have quite a few, I have to say, but I think to support me and to enhance the engagement with whoever I'm supporting, I like to try and keep up to date with the discipline. So I do always like to look at ft.com. It's one of my go-to places. And also, and there's so much news going on, it's always one where I think I quite like to see what the FT have got to say about this particular issue. And the other one that I do like to look at as well, because it helps me with, particularly with supporting, new students, is Harvard Business Review. I like that. And it's a lovely, colourful journal, but also has amazing content. And I can use it to help introduce nice examples as well for research projects. But I always make a point of pointing that out to students and say, you really need to keep up to date with
it's very true.
Your area. And it's reading that you will take with you if you pursue a career in business, in the corporate world as well.
Yeah, and we have full subscriptions to both of them, don't we? So there's no excuses not to be reading and keeping up to date, okay? They're both easily accessed through one search as well.
Yes.
Cool. So what's been your best moment in your role at Lancaster so far?
I think, I've been here since 2022, and within the first few months, the team leader did say, if you want to take the Business Librarians Association conference here, we would support you. So I'm part of the committee of the Business Librarians Association. It's been around for 50 years. It's celebrating its 50th year.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Next year. And, it's got a wide membership, but we had to postpone conferences for about 3 years due to the pandemic. And then people just weren't quite feeling it after, we emerged from the pandemic. So Lancaster University was picked as a venue, and I'm really grateful because we had to kind of test whether we felt comfortable coming back, and it was such a lovely way to bring everyone on campus, and we had the whole full campus experience, which is not something that all universities can offer.
No.
And with the wider membership, we rely on a volunteer to come forward, and it's not easy being the conference organizer and also being a member of the committee, and it was a lot of work, but I see it as something that I benefited from, but I hope that the university really benefited from too, and the library. There was lots of lovely comments about the place. And it's almost like inviting all your friends to tea, and then of course what you have to do is really put on a good show. So it was quite a lot of pressure, But it was an excellent...
Hope you didn't have to do the washing up though afterwards. No, it's a really good example, and yeah, you know, remember coming out of the pandemic and reconnecting with colleagues and stuff was just so that kind of thing would have been fantastic to be involved in. So yeah, it's a good one. So final kind of work question before I ask you a couple of personal questions, if you don't mind. Time travel's been invented. Okay, it was probably a LUMS student that's invented it, but what advice would you give yourself as a student that you've learned as a librarian?
Yeah, you gave me advance notice of this question, and I thought about it, and I thought, oh, I'm maybe misinterpreting this, so forgive me. But when I was a student, I actually studied information and library studies. That was my degree at Birmingham. And in the last year, and it was in the early 90s that I studied in Birmingham, there was the slow, adoption of what you would call the internet as it is now. Because what we were focusing on was the technologies such as CD-ROMs.
Yes, I know those very well.
Microfiche. And we still had rows and rows of indexes and abstracts. And we also had the benefit, and this was the technology they all said we needed to embrace, was the dial-up, to the big hosts, which was Datastar and Dialogue. And you had to learn this very, what felt like an intimidating language. But I loved it, I took to it like a duck to water, and just thought, right, this is it, So during those final months, they were starting to say, right, okay, what we can do is start looking at the new interfaces that were coming through, which was the early kind of web crawlers and, the early web browsers. And I remember thinking, oh, no, I'm not seeing this at all, and I completely just dismissed it. I said, yeah, right, that's not for me, I'm just going to stick with this. And when you think about it, it was only a couple of years later that Google started to really take over. Now, when you think about how dismissive I was, and then the impact that Google had on our profession, to a point whereby, our suppliers, that you're talking about, say, OneSearch, were developing interfaces that were very similar to the way Google operated. I would say to a student, you might be seeing something now in your discipline, you might be introduced to something that you'll think, no, that's not going to take on, but don't do it. Just say, right, okay, let's just keep an eye on this, because I did dismiss, those early.
I think today's equivalent is going to be some form of generative AI, isn't it, or something like that, or even searching with pictures on your phone and things like that. It's here for a reason, and it's probably going to grow. I was similar. I remember when the internet first came in, and you had to, you couldn't make a phone call if you were using the internet and dial-up and things, and I was working in public libraries at the time, and it was so expensive to use. You had to have different contracts, and I think we used to charge like £5 for 20 minutes, and we were making a loss on that. And that was with things like Netscape and stuff like that. This is all really antique technology, guys, so we're reminiscing here, but I fully understand where you're coming from with that. So, thank you for sharing that. So, couple of questions to finish with. Got to ask this of librarians. What's your favourite book, and what about it left an impression on you? And you can have more than one book if you want. Several of your colleagues have had more than one book.
Yeah, so there are many books, but I think the one that I really cherish as something to own, it's been passed down to me from my mother, and it was her mother's book. So my family come from Northern Ireland. And my grandmother was a very skilled seamstress. And this book has got no cover, it's got no title page. It's a very, very tatty and old book. But inside it's got every detailed description, method, old photography, showing how you do different buttonholes, seams, different sleeves, all the detail there. So my education, I did O-levels, and I went to a very traditional Catholic school where we had to take options from, quite a spread. And one of the things we had to do was some kind of either domestic science or dress. So I did O-level dress, which is actually dressmaking. And it was a very tough O-level, I have to say, because it was nearly 5 hours worth of a kind of exam. So you had a practical of about 3 hours and 2 hours written paper. Yeah. But along with that, you had to do some coursework. So one of the pieces of coursework was to maintain a kind of sample folder where you had to recreate all these different buttonholes, fasteners, seams. And this was my go-to book that helped me. But it did introduce, how well a method could be described, could be laid out, Yeah. And it was an excellent example. Now, the font is very small, I have to say. The photography is quite primitive. Yeah. But it's an amazing book. And my grandmother passed away in 1952, so we don't know the date of this book. It could be...
And there's no publisher page in it or anything like that? Okay.
So, it's in a safe place. Yeah. But I've never seen anything like it. I whenever I see, like a dressmaker's manual or something in a bookshop, I look and I just think, it doesn't even come close,
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's got techniques in there that you don't see anymore. So it's a real boon. So that really got me through I have to say, it got me through my O-level. But, when I was at university with my first degree, the first time I came across, looking at literature to help me with my assignment work was when we were set an assignment. I'd studied public libraries as a module. We came across we needed to kind of, in this assignment, talk about the impact of public libraries on communities. And for the first time I came across it was a quote from James Baldwin. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's not in his own writing, but it was about his use of libraries. Oh, okay. And the fact that he read through 2 libraries in Harlem by the time he was 13. And we've all stumbled across it, the same cohort, we all stumbled across this, and we all frantically tried to kind of craft it into our assignment. So that was the first time I'd come across James Baldwin, But yes, many different books, I have to say.
If you don't know who James Baldwin is, look him up on Wikipedia. There you go. That's the first time you'll hear one of us librarians say use Wikipedia. Or you could ask AI. That's really good. Thank you for sharing that. And final question. Can you tell us an unusual or interesting fact about yourself? Well, I think the book one was a good example anyway, but, anything else?
Well, as part of my course, I did a 9-month work placement in the Ministry of Defence.
Did you have to sign the official Secrets Act?
I've signed it a couple of times, Andy. Because I also work for Rolls-Royce.
Oh, yes,
But the one day, I think it was in the first sort of few months there, I was mentored by a librarian who'd served in the DTI, the Department of Transport and Industry. So the assignment that we had called in, it was from an unnamed individual. It would have been one of the permanent secretaries. So we spent some time researching, and it was very much a business inquiry, looking at companies. Right. So we compiled. So again, we were on, the Dialogue and Data Star hosts, looking at all this information, collating all of this. So it was quite a busy day. But during my lunch break, I also stumbled across someone looking for information. It was just outside. So we were based in Great Scotland Yard in London, Whitehall. The inquiry came through. The security staff were on the front. So they said, someone's looking for some information. Would you mind going to help them? Yeah. And it turned out to be the England manager at the time, which was Terry Venables.
Oh, wow. Cool.
But after we, I think he was just looking for some information about a particular place in Whitehall that he needed to be.
Okay.
But I think the fellows that were on the security at the time, there was security on all the front desks and in all of the buildings. I think they knew or they spotted who he was, but they set me up to say, I actually probably might know who he is. But straight away I thought,
Brilliant.
But on the inquiry that we were working on, it was just a few days later that we got a nice message that came back from, it was the Prime Minister, it was John Major, and he said, thank you for the work that you did on that inquiry. So 2 quite substantial inquiries on that one day.
And it's always nice to be appreciated, particularly by, the leader of the country, really.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's cool. That's really good.
Yeah, so busy times in libraries.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you very much for sharing all that with us today. It's been fascinating. I hope you've enjoyed listening or watching this podcast. Check out the others that we have as well from talking around the library tree. And see you soon. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.